You are listening to the Southwestern American Choral Directors Association Connections podcast, where we will interview choral directors, leaders, and movers and shakers within our region. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Wall. We hope you enjoy these conversations. Please like and subscribe this YouTube channel for future content. Hi friends, today I get to bring you a conversation and an interview with Nathan Wubbena. Nathan is the artistic director of the Boulder Children's Chorale and the Longmont Chorale, both in Colorado, and is the board president and founder of Ascent Vocals. He serves as our R&R chair for children and community youth for SWACDA. He's a sought-after clinician and adjudicator, and there's much more to his bio, of course, in the description of this video. I encourage you, as always, to go down there and take a good look at the extended bio. I also want to stop and just encourage you to make sure you go down to the comments of these videos or on social media posts that you see about the podcast. We do read those. I read those, and I want to try to make this podcast better with your suggestions. So what questions do you want to know from these folks, and what topics do you want to hear discussed? We're hitting some surface area things here, but we can dig a little deeper if you'd like. So give me some suggestions and how we can make this better. Lastly, I want to make sure that you go to swacda.org. That's SWACDA.org. Sign up for our bi-monthly newsletter called the Connection Magazine, carefully curated by Jonathan Owen and Margie Camp, featuring a lot of these R&R chairs that we've been featuring on the podcast recently, with articles and repertoire lists and history and all kinds of useful information there. So make sure that that is hitting your inbox and not just your spam folder. And lastly, I want to encourage you to attend the, of course, National ACDA Conference in Dallas. Hope to see old friends there and make some new friends and sit down with a few of you in what we hope to do, some little mini interviews with you and see how your conference is going and ask you some questions and feature you on the pod. So that's what we have going on right now. And without further ado, I do want to bring you Nathan Wubbena.
All right, everybody. I'm joined today on the Connections podcast here with Nathan Wubbena. Nathan, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the world and what brought you to the Nathan of today, musical upbringing, all that good stuff.
Well, that's a lot that brought me here. Well, right now I am the artistic director for 3 different nonprofit organizations. I'm in charge of the Boulder Children's Chorale, which is K through 9, and I direct their 6 through 9 choir. And then I'm also in charge of the Longmont Chorale, which is an adult choir, a non-audition choir. We're about 100 strong. And then I also run a nonprofit called Ascent Vocals that I started. And through there, I do a summer camp, and I have a high school group. We do contemporary music, a cappella and not a cappella, but all contemporary stuff, which is great. I used to teach in the public schools. I taught middle school, high school for a year. I taught elementary. I really loved elementary kids, and I still do. I just, the general music topic stuff wasn't engaging to me. I really was, my passion is choral stuff. And so then I moved into the choral world and was really excited about that. But, I grew up singing all the way through. My parents will tell you that they heard me singing all the way throughout the house. Even when I was little, and I, did church choir and, choir whenever I could do it. I couldn't do choir in middle school because they only let us do, one ensemble. So I chose to do band. But then as soon as I could, then I jumped into it in high school and, haven't stopped since.
Gotcha. Just curious, what'd you play in band?
Trumpet.
Trumpet, right on. Okay.
Yep. I was in marching band all the way through high school. I haven't really touched my trumpet since high school. Not much anyway, but I was drum major of the marching band, which was a lot of fun. So I have a deep love for marching band because that was, my passion in high school for sure.
Well, it also sounds like you're a little bit of a glutton for punishment, like many of us, with 3 different nonprofits. So
yeah. That's
so what was the impetus for all 3 of those organizations? Can you give us a little backstory on those?
Sure. Yeah. So Boulder Children's Chorale, when I was, I live in Longmont, Colorado, and I was teaching at Sunset Middle School here. And I got an email at the end of June from one of the other teachers in our district who was one of the directors for the Boulder Children's Chorale. And, she said, "Hey, we have an opening, you should apply." So I did, I got the job. And that was our our choir just a level down. It's our first audition choir, 4th through 7th about usually. And I taught that choir for a while, and then our artistic director left. And so I applied for the job, and then ended up getting in with another person. That person left. So then I was left as the lone artistic director. We had an interesting, unique situation where we were co-artistic directors, but it worked really well. I really liked working with her. And in fact, I liked working with her so much that when we had an opening this year, I brought her back again to work with us again. But that was I think that was really where my safety net was for stopping teaching in the schools. The reason I stopped really was for my kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old now. And when I stopped, the 3-year-old was kind of on the way. And so my goal was to be home with them and spend time with them as they were little, and not have to deal with childcare all the way through. And my wife and I have a situation where we can kind of cover everything basically, which is really nice. And we get to spend a lot of time with our kids. And it's been great. I had my son for the first part of his life, I was teaching, and I feel like I'm a lot closer to my son, and then especially my daughter, because, she's grown up with me all the way through, which is cool. But when I stopped teaching, I also wanted to start Ascent Vocals because I had a summer camp that was already running that I had done through my school, but I couldn't do through my school anymore. So I started that up. And then the goal was to also, through Ascent Vocals, do a high school group, but also try to do as much as I can to support teachers. That's a real passion of mine, because I love supporting people and giving them things that they need. And so we're slowly growing towards being able to do that a little bit more. But we do, we have a couple festivals that we run, and I have my high school group, my summer camp, and I always send things out. And we try to make everything that we do really engaging and interesting for the students, but also really highly educationally valuable, things that challenge students, so that when they come back to the classrooms after the summer, that it's, they've learned something and they can take that stuff and apply it. I think it's not quite an honor choir because anyone can come, but, because it's a summer singing camp for middle school, high school students, it's the kids that are really motivated that come. So in a lot of ways, it is kind of that same kind of week-long honor choir feel, which is a lot of fun. And we do a lot of stuff with that. And then I got a job with the Longmont Chorale through the artistic director at the time. He retired, and now he's the associate director. And he said that I should apply for the job, and I did. It's been great. This is my 2nd year with him. So I really enjoy everything I'm doing. And then I do real estate appraising on the side to, continue to make ends meet. So juggle lots of hats.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But, noble reasons too for when to stay home with your kids. So that's a great reason to do all of that. Tell us a little bit then about your role with Southwestern ACDA, and maybe what you're interested in. I should mention that you've already recorded an interview with Chris Manu, and we're going to be putting that up shortly after we release this interview. So I'm excited about that initiative, having you guest host a few times to introduce some new folks to us. So tell us a little bit about your role and what you'll be doing with us.
Sure. Yeah, I've been asked to join as the Repertoire and Resources Chair for Children and Community Youth, which I'm really excited for. That's why I've lived my life pretty much my whole career in, is those areas. And I really am excited to, repertoire is a passion of mine. I spend all kinds of time choosing repertoire and digging through things and finding just the best stuff. And, generally I'm successful. My students really enjoy, for the most part, what I choose, never 100%. But for the most part, they enjoy it. And, the adults that sing with me say they enjoy it, and audience members. So I think that I want to bring anything that I can in my success, to help people out as much as I can, but also to be a resource. Because like I talked about, with Ascent Vocals, one of my passions is giving people tools to be successful. And so if I can make connections, that's great. I don't think that I'm necessarily a huge font of information, or fount. I have lots of experience and lots of things to give, but I don't know everything. And so one of the things that I really want to do is connect people and, lift up others that have, information that I don't, or have really good experience, or, ideas that I want to bring to light too. So I think really creating connection is really what I would love to do, because I think that's so important. And that's what I'm working on in everything I'm doing right now, in all my choirs, is trying to build connection, because I think connection is the foundation of a lot of the things that we do. And then, a lot of great things can come from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really resonates with the mission that Jonathan Owen wants to bring forth with this New Horizons in Albuquerque, and leading up to the conference too in this off-conference year, just creating connection between all of us so that we can use each other as resources. So that's great. So what is a piece of music then that you think best embodies your personality? And it doesn't have to be choral music, but it can be.
Yeah, these questions I just never know how to answer. I'm like, I don't know what this. I don't know how to choose one that exactly embodies. An answer never comes to me. So I asked my wife because I felt like that would be a good source of information. She's thought for a minute, and then jokingly said animal crackers, and I'm which has a ring of truth to it because I'm a little bit goofy. But she ended up settling on. She said something Copeland because it's lively and upbeat and enjoyable and interesting. So that's from my wife's mouth.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, actually, asking somebody else is a good move, I think, because sometimes we don't quite have the perspective of ourselves. So that's great. Okay, so it's sort of related to that. What's your desert island choral piece? Only one that maybe you could have on loop with you for the time that you're stranded.
Man, that you sent me this question, and it went through my head, and I had no idea what to choose. There are so many good options out there, and there's lots of things that have resonated with me. And I thought about, is it something that I've, really, well, part of me wanted to cheat and say, let's choose a really long major work so I have a lot of variety. That was part of my thought process. And then part of me said, well, no, I mean, it's something that has meaning too, to me, that probably was foundational in my musical upbringing. I think that's where I landed. And I thought about a lot of different pieces that did that. But one that I kind of landed on, which some may not be familiar with, and it's not a big choral work or anything, but the Lutheran Church oftentimes at Lent does a service called the Holden Evening Prayer, which is very simple, but it's really, really beautiful. And I always loved it. And I still do. And so I think that's what I'm going to land on, because it has always been a sense of calm and comfort for me whenever I do that. It always, growing up, I went to soup suppers and then went to that service. So it was always a sense of community and comfort and family that came along with it. And so I think that'd be the piece I'd bring.
Yeah, I love that. That's it. And it's an interesting question because nobody has the same answer. And everybody, it gives a little window into their perspective and their personality too. So that's great. You mentioned that you really enjoy programming and repertoire. So do you have a particular philosophy of programming?
I think it's evolved over time, as many things do. But when I program, I think it's true no matter what's been going on, is I will listen to a lot of things, even things that I'm really familiar with. I'll go back and listen to again just to get it in my ear. And then I want to give something that has just a variety to my students. That's what I've always done. Teaching in the schools, I never had a theme necessarily that I went around. And that's nice. And and now I do that. And I actually really enjoy that. It sometimes gives me a guidance. And I was actually talking to a student the other day, and they were saying that they really liked it when there was a theme, because they said that at their school, there was a water theme one concert, and it really engaged them. And then, the stuff that we do in our community group too really engages them, because they feel like they can connect it, have a through line all the way through that. And so I've really enjoyed that. But I don't think it's necessarily end all be all. I think what's important is giving everyone a variety of things. And I think I've been lucky enough to, for most of my career, have a pianist that could handle most anything. And so I always want to choose music that the piano adds to it. Because I feel like a good piano part will make a world of difference in the music. And it's not something that, audience members might necessarily point to, but it just adds an extra layer to it. And so, that's what I always try to do too. And so even if you're choosing a piece that's for your, elementary choir, that's unison, there's some really wonderful piano parts that add to it. And so it creates this really wonderful piece where people don't feel like it's empty at all because of everything else that's going on. So, I try to find something that can engage everyone, both emotionally and orally.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just kind of going back to your thematic programming idea, it's something that I share often with my students too. It's sometimes everything, the stars align and you can find a perfect, collection of selections that go with the theme. And then other times you're trying too hard to try to fit a piece within a theme that you've already selected. And so it ends up not being the right music for the choir that's in front of you. So yeah, I love themes too, because it gives that through line. But yeah, I think it has to be the right piece, the right collection of pieces to fit under that theme. Sometimes I'll glean the theme just from the pieces that we've selected.
Right. Yeah.
So that's
I think I should also say exactly what you said too. I definitely choose music that's right for my choir. Even if I want to do a piece, I'm not going to touch it because, I think I learned that early on in my career. There was a piece that I selected for my choir that's like, this is going to be great. They're going to love it. And they did not. And it was not great because they were just not ready for that yet. And so I've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I found that was I've only had one time in my career, I think, where I've selected a theme and all the pieces just kind of lined up with that. And so it was a rough go there for a while, trying to fit things into the theme, because I thought that's the way to do it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that was a great little snippet of advice there. What would you describe as a typical rehearsal under your direction, and maybe give us a little insight into what it would be for your youth choir, and then maybe how that differs for adults?
Honestly, it doesn't actually differ a whole lot. That was,
good answer.
Yeah, it doesn't differ a whole lot at all. I mean, I think the core rehearsal concepts are the same regardless of what age group you have. I mean, sometimes the things that you're talking about or the music you're dealing with is different, but I mean, everything that's core to it doesn't. At the school, I never really, I didn't do by the minute. I always looked ahead. The beginning of the day, I would open my music and say, all right, we need to work in this section and this section, and then put the order on the board, and I wouldn't have I would know what I wanted to do and kind of in the frame of what needed to be done for to get ready for the concert, but I didn't have like a minute by minute plan at all. But now, because all of my choirs meet once a week, for somewhere between 1.5 to 2 hours, I have a minute by minute plan, not minute by minute, but it's planned down pretty tightly, because I know exactly what I need to hit to try to make sure that they're successful and they feel comfortable when they walk onto stage. But so, I think that's what it starts with for me with all of my rehearsals, is really sitting down, looking at the music, thinking about what have we done? What was I hearing the last rehearsal or two? And then what do we need to do coming up? And I, write out that plan. And usually, I don't think it probably looks different than a whole lot of, anyone else's rehearsals. I start with warm-ups, and all my warm-ups, I try to, I think I've settled in too much recently. I used to vary more, and I think I haven't. My focus has been on other things. And so I haven't done enough good variety in my warm-ups, which is something I need to work on again. But, I try to have at least a variety of concepts that we cover in warm-ups, especially focusing on the things that I'm hearing from the choir that I'd really like to hone in on. And I'm not afraid to spend some extra time on warm-ups, especially towards the beginning, because I think that's where it all starts from, is defining that tone and then taking that over and moving in there. With my youth choir, my first rehearsals are very much warm-up focused and community focused, rep very light. And then we jump into rep as we get, a couple more in. Now, I direct, if I had a more beginning choir, I'd jump into rep even more slowly than I do now. But I, even with my adult choir, it's the same thing. I start with warm-ups, and I'm really trying to hone in on technical, concepts to make sure we can define good, healthy singing that is the, tone and shaping that I'm looking for. And also trying to encourage flexibility, because I think, and this was something that my wife is also, has a choral background, and I was talking to her about this because she's singing in the Longmont Chorale right now. A lot of times I think people don't understand the variety of, ways we can use our voice, of tones we can create, of textures we can create with, different kinds of techniques, and vocal production. And so I also try to encourage flexibility and talking to students, or singers, adults, whatever, about, what's fit for this song. What's the vocal production we're going to use for this song versus the other song, because it's not the same, and it shouldn't be, right? I mean, that's going to create a much more interesting concert if the audience doesn't just hear one tone all the way through. At least that's what I think. There's a solid foundational tone that should be there all the way throughout, but there should be shifts depending on what kind of emotion or style you're singing in. So, I mean, in the end, starts with warm-ups, and then we jump into it. And usually I try to, people have probably heard of the golden mean. I don't think I necessarily follow that directly, but the idea of starting light with something familiar and then digging into the meaty stuff kind of towards the middle-ish, middle end, and then, kind of tapering off with something a little bit more review or something simpler or whatever at the end. And I don't always succeed in it, but I do like the philosophy that I heard from someone somewhere, who knows. I mean, all my things that I do are stolen pretty much, is leave them singing, and so if you can sing something at the end that they can walk out singing at the end, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a common answer. And a lot of what you said there, I think, ties in closely to just human psychology, as to the arc of our rehearsal plan and where we want them to peak and where we want them to, how we want them to leave the rehearsal. So I think that's great. So then what pointers might you have for an emerging choral leader?
Oh, well, let's see here. I think a good pointer, and something that I suppose is another way that my rehearsal looks too, is that I think it's so critical to almost, I don't want to say detached or emotionless, but like when you give feedback and saying it's not, angry or frustrated, it's just like, hey, here's what I'm hearing, here's what I want to hear instead, just factual, where it's like, so that it's a process, it's just a learning process. Here's what's going on, not, you're bad people, you're bad singers, or whatever, right? Or, any kind of emotion wrapped up into it necessarily. I mean, we get emotional, especially when our students are like not doing the thing we've told them 5 billion times. But, as much as you can, being like patient and just uplifting, I think that's a really important thing, because if your singers find joy in what they're doing, that's going to carry over to so many different things. And, it's going to show in their performance. It's going to create a better rehearsal experience for everyone. So, I mean, I think creating joy, and, something that I talked to, when I was talking to Chris, I liked what he said one time was, don't be afraid to take the time that's needed for other things. And I think that, that can be applied to a lot of things. So if there's something going on, in your students' lives, take the time to talk about it, but I think also make sure that it's not all about the performance, it's about the learning process, and it's about getting your students to create, a better version of themselves. And so I think at the beginning of my career, it was all about the performance, right? We just went for it. We did the theory stuff too, but I think I was so honed in on the music production stuff and trying to just teach through that I think I let some other things fall. And then when I was at Sunset, a year in there, I had been rehearsing every day. We were rehearsing every day, and I changed to, we're going to rehearse 3 days a week. And the other 2 days a week, we're going to work on theory stuff on one day. And then the other day, we're going to do like individual singing projects so that they can sing in small groups or individually to like hone in on those skills. And that ended up being really, really healthy. The variety worked really, really well for my students. And then our rehearsals were much more productive because of it. And nothing fell off performance-wise at all, So, and in the same vein, don't freak out. As long as you kind of keep going, it's all going to come together. I mean, that's what I learned, especially doing musicals. It doesn't matter if you have a 12-week rehearsal schedule, a 16 rehearsal schedule, or like an 18 or an 8-week rehearsal schedule. It's like 2 weeks before the performance, you're going to be freaking out. And then, they get to the dress rehearsal and you're like, oh, this might be okay. This might be okay. And then it gets to the actual thing and it goes, they pull it through. So, just keep going, keep moving. It's going to be okay. And if it's not, that's all right. Because my big motto that I've learned from another teacher is, hooray, I failed. Celebrate failure, because it's just a chance to learn and move on. It's not going to kill you.
Right. Yeah. I follow this guy, and one of his sayings is, and he's a retired Navy SEAL commander, so you can take that for what it's worth. But he says good. That's his one word phrase for anytime something goes bad. Good. That means it's opportunity to improve, an opportunity to get better. So I like your answer there. Absolutely. Kind of in the same vein here. Also, what general advice would you give to your 16-year-old self with the knowledge you have now?
Oh, I mean, that's a whole big can of worms. I think the easy answer, the thing that I've always regretted, that's not a big regret or anything, is that my senior year in high school, I took IB physics or whatever. I phoned that class in. I did okay. But I mean, like second semester, I was just totally checked out. And I wish I had just, instead of done that, I had taken jazz band. That's what I wish. I would have gone back and told my 16-year-old self, take jazz band. Because then I think I would have had I think I can do jazz, but it's not necessarily my strong suit at all. And I think having some more foundational experience within that would have been really, really great from, my career in general. And I think would have been a whole lot more enjoyable than physics, because did I use it? Nope.
So offshoot question, did you know at 16 years old that you were going to be a musician?
Let's see, 16 years old. That's like end of sophomore year, junior. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I knew it necessarily. I think I kind of knew I was going to go into teaching, honestly. I didn't, it was just a calling. And my I was kind of leaning between three things, basically. One was choral directing, one was band directing, and then one was being a math teacher, because I like math. I really enjoy math. I'm a nerd. And so I ended up deciding music, because music is just so amazing. And I decided choral singing because I love singing, and I think that's where I was more involved. I was in more choirs and bands, and also because I just didn't want to learn. I wasn't that passionate about trumpet. I loved band, but I was not passionate about trumpet. And so spending all the time learning, that instrument and as private lessons, that just was not super appealing to me. So I chose choral, and I haven't looked back since. I love it.
Gotcha. Well, I always enjoy talking with folks that have that super analytical mathematical brain that can merge that with the creative. So it sounds like you've been able to do that very well.
I try.
Yeah. So what advice then do you think you would give yourself right now if you were, say, 90 years old or in the later part of your life? What advice would you give yourself right now?
Man, I don't. That's a hard question. I have no idea what advice I would give myself right now. I mean, thinking back to, my mentors and all the people who are retired that I know, I think, or grandparents or whatever, I think the thing that I hear consistently is that time goes by really fast, especially for kids. So just, I think I would probably end up telling myself, continue to spend as much time as you can with your kids. Focus on your family, and, all the other stuff is important too, but don't neglect all your personal stuff, because I think that's a really important component to everything. And, it's time you just can't get back.
Yeah, I think that's valuable advice. And because of that, I'm going to jump down to a later question, because I think it relates. So what do you do to relax and fight burnout? Focusing on those things that are important, like family. What would be your take on that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing I did most recently is I turned off email, like the badge, because anytime you pull out your phone and then I had the badge, like, oh, another email popped in, right? So then I have to look at it. And so I just turn it off. I'm like, nope, stop. You can look at it when you want to look at it. It's still going to be there. There's nothing emergent, because I tell people if it's on email, it can't be emergency, because who knows when I'm going to get to it anyway, right? If it's a real emergency, you can text me and I'll try to get back to you then. But I think that's one thing I'm doing. I'm trying to detach myself as much as I can, so I'm really present with, in the moments that I am. And so I do, that's one thing that I certainly do. When my daughter says she wants to play with me, and I kind of want to get some work done, I go ahead and I play with her for a little before I get the work done. And I think that's been really healthy for both of us. So that's great. I also like I said, I'm a huge nerd. So I play Dungeons and Dragons. I got a couple groups of friends that I play with. And we play, a couple times a month or whatever, we get together. And that's been a really great thing because, we spend about 4 hours together hanging out, and we have food and talk and have fun together while we play it. So that's one thing I do. And then, I try to find other fun activities around to kind of spend some time away from all the other stuff. Cause it's so hard. It's so hard detaching, as a teacher or as, especially in my line of work, because the people are working at nighttime too. Like oftentimes the board members, they have regular day jobs. And so the work that they get done is at the night. So things pop in then. And, all of the stuff that I do directing wise is at nighttime. And so it's just trying to find that balance of, doing all the stuff that I need to do and still loving it, but also trying to detach too.
Yeah, I think we're kindred spirits there. I'm really trying to detach more now. I post things to social media, but it's mainly just as an archive for myself or for my kids to look back on or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm on there for a second just to kind of remain relevant, I guess. Scroll, like, and then get off of there as best I can.
Yeah.
So, but it's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to kind of detach and do all of that. But yeah, I think it's important for our mental health to do that too, just to get away from the busyness, but also sometimes it can be vitriolic, and with emails, I agree completely because I espouse the whole saying of there are no emergencies in classical music.
Yeah.
So I just wish we could get everybody else to agree with that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep. Okay. So what, when you're working on like a passion project or you're in the zone, what does that look like for you?
Oftentimes that's like repertoire choosing. That's like one time that it happens and just time falls away. Like I can go an entire day and I can go without eating. I can do, whatever. And it just kind of falls away from me and I kind of just am totally zoned in on whatever I'm doing. And it's kind of crazy. Sometimes I look up at the clock. I'm like, well, that's 6 hours later. How'd that happen? It feels like it was 2 or something. And I think that's the biggest thing. Also, I get annoyed at interruptions and I try not to, but when like something comes in, whatever it is, when I used to teach at a Sunset, I would go and choose my repertoire on the weekends because there was no one there. And I would just go into my school. No one was going to bug me ever. It was away from any kind of, sound at home or whatever. And then I could just sit there and do the job. And that's, that's what I really like when I'm in that zone and on passion. It's just like, I just want to work. I want to go and I want to get things done while I'm, in that mode.
I agree. I'm the same way. Okay. So say you're in a sanctioned WWE style wrestling choral match with a 4-person tag team. You're one of them, of choral directors. So in clinic or in session, who are the 3 other choral directors you'd like in your corner?
So initially when you sent me this, I thought it was like an actual WWE match. And I was like, okay, well, these answers are going to be different.
That's just where my brain goes.
Well, and I think, I went to your session on, jujitsu at SWACDA this year. I liked it. But, when I was like WWE, I'm like, I'm picking you. But, no, if in clinic or, there are a lot of good answers and there are a lot of people I could call on. So there are 3 people I selected for a variety of reasons, not knowing what the clinic or session was, trying to be ready for anything. One is my colleague, Abby Martinez. She's at Erie Middle School. She just did the honor choir for Colorado ACDA this summer. But she's fantastic. I've been on the board with her for Colorado Middle School All-State. And I picked her because 1, she is incredibly uplifting and optimistic and just a joy to be around. But 2, her ability to handle pretty much any situation that gets thrown at her is pretty incredible. And so there have been many times in middle school All-State when I was sitting as the board president, there was something that I had done in the past year that I was planning to do again. And then it came down to the event and I realized I just did not have the mental space or mental fortitude to take it on. Because, I was thinking about other things. At that point, my brain was just kind of drained. And so Abby's like, I'll do it. I got you. And she kind of took it over and just went for it, which was super awesome. And so she's just such a great teammate that I've worked with in many situations. Another person that I thought of was Ruth Dwyer. I got to know her. She was one of our all-state clinicians for middle school all-state when I was board president. So I took her, back to the airport. I spent some time with her, spent time at breakfast, all that kind of stuff, and got to know her a little bit. And she's just a phenomenally wonderful person. I've stayed a little bit connected with her, and I love everything that she does. And she is, a phenomenally wonderful conductor, with a deep knowledge base across so many aspects. And so I would love to have her in my corner to, basically be such a foundational element for the youth element, if we're doing any kind of youth stuff. And then the third director that I chose to work with me was Janice Vlahos, who's the current president of Colorado ACDA. She was my former director at Fairview High School. She came in at the very end of my years there, but she is a fount of knowledge in jazz, which I am not. And so I chose her because I would trust her in any element there. And it's not just jazz that she's good at. She's wonderful. And she's also a wonderful pianist. So anything that would need to happen pianos with a piano, she could handle, which I also could not. So I feel like I would have 3 wonderful people in my corner that could do all sorts of wonderful things. And I probably wouldn't even have to do anything myself.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got some great choices here. I know Ruth, just kind of briefly worked with her. My choir was singing as a prelude choir for the North Texas Metro Children's Choir at the Meyerson. And she was the guest clinician and conductor for that festival, that annual festival. So just I echo your sentiments, just a wonderful person. And I can't wait to watch her work again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I loved watching her.
And I'm interested to dig in and I wrote these names down for Abby and Janice to dig into their work a little more too. So thank you for that. That's one of the reasons that I asked this question, because I get onto new people. This may be related to your answer here, but who is another choral musician that you would like to lift up? Maybe one that doesn't get as much attention as you think they deserve.
That's a really hard question. I think there are a lot of people that I love what they're doing. I'm going to go ahead and cheat and just lift up a couple people. I think one person was someone who just stepped in recently with my summer camp, Carly Newman. She did a great job this summer. Just stepping in lots of different elements, did a great job stepping into a new thing. I really love what she was doing. And she's, I wouldn't say she's a new teacher at all. She's probably around me, I think, maybe a little bit younger. But she's doing a great job. I think the other person I wanted to lift up was Julia Dale, who really inspired me. She's the incoming president for Colorado ACDA, but she did a session at our state conference this summer about how she creates community in her choirs. And I really, really liked it. And it really inspired me to go on and do some things as well. And so I think she has a whole presentation all, set and ready to go. And I bet she'd be totally willing to share it with her. And the cool thing is that she brought along one of her students to do the presentation with her, one of her incoming seniors. And that student did about half the presentation, right? And so, she had already empowered her students to do some really cool stuff as well. So I think she's obviously doing some great stuff in that aspect, which was really, really lovely. I loved that.
That's great. We'll be on the lookout for these folks too. Okay. With my guests, I like to play this little game called the Accelerando round. It's just quick fire questions. You don't have to think too much about these. These don't have anything to do. They don't have anything to do with choral music. Just to kind of get to know you a little better. So what's the worst job you ever had outside of choral music?
The worst job I ever had? I haven't had too many jobs, I suppose. I mean, all I've done is really lawn care and Target. And they were both fine jobs. I was treated well. Target actually did a lot of stuff. So, but there were probably some lawn care things that some clients that weren't great. So we'll take that.
Gotcha. Yeah. There are a lot of jobs that I did that I said, well, there's a reason I'm a choir director now and don't do that anymore. So, okay. So what is your guilty pleasure bad food to eat?
Guilty pleasure bad food. Oh, ice cream. Mm-hmm.
Ice cream. What flavor?
Ooh, probably like a chocolate caramel. Mm-hmm.
Chocolate caramel.
Yeah.
Delicious. Delicious. Okay. If you had to do any other job besides being a musician of some kind, what might that be?
And any other job, huh? Well, I mean, technically I'm a real estate appraiser, so that's the cheat answer. But if I could choose anything, oh, I would be a pilot. That's definitely what I would be. A private pilot. That'd be a lot of fun. I'd like that job.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. What is a movie or TV show that you think everyone should watch at least once?
Well, I'm just working on Ted Lasso right now, and a lot of people have watched it, but I think that's a show that a lot of people should watch. I would say that in some ways, I'm a lot like Ted Lasso in some ways. And so, but I just love his optimism and his ability to kind of handle a lot of stuff. I mean, obviously it goes deeper into some other stuff there, but I really like that show.
Yeah, that's a great show. Yeah, really great show. I know everybody's watching it, just like you said, but if you haven't seen it, you need to bring that up and watch it. There's a lot of great messages in that show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have a choice here between these two questions. What is the scariest moment in your life, or what has been the scariest moment in your life, or what is your biggest phobia?
Okay, I'll go for the first one. I'm not sure I have a hugest phobia, but the first one's an easy answer. My son came out not breathing because he had inhaled meconium in utero, and so he was rushed to the emergency room. And so he had given birth. And my wife had given birth at a birth center, which was just like a 2-minute drive from the hospital. So we had to call 911. They showed up in no time because they were so close. They had him in the ambulance. We went to the hospital. And so it was between the time he came out and the time they got him breathing again after shooting him with epinephrine and doing CPR, we walked into the emergency room. I didn't walk, ran, and there was 8 people all crowded around this little baby. That was probably one of the scariest moments in my life right there, was waiting for him to breathe again. And, luckily I had some wonderful support people around that did such a wonderful job, both supporting him and someone that supported me through the process too. But that was the scariest moment in my life right there. But thankfully, he recovered really, really quickly, which we didn't realize was an incredible blessing, because some babies that have the same thing come out with some significant mental disabilities because of it. And so we were really lucky. The people who, were supporting him all the way through made sure he continued to have oxygen, and he recovered really incredibly quickly. So we're very grateful, but that was a lot.
Yeah, that is super scary. A very different situation, but I have something similar in my backstory. So yeah, I can completely resonate with what you're saying there about the birth of your child and something going wrong. Okay, so what is something that you spend way too much money on?
What do I spend way too much money on? Well, earlier, not anymore because I have kids, but earlier it was video games. Spent a lot of money on video games. Probably just electronics in general. I don't know, I probably could have cheaper electronics and save more money, but I don't.
Gotcha. Okay, so what's a secret talent that most people would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, what? I don't know. I'm not sure I even have a secret talent.
Oh, come on, everybody has a little something.
What do I do? I don't know. I can whistle really loud.
Okay, demonstration incoming.
All right, here we go.
Great.
Like dog out there, be like.
Yeah, I think the audio dipped because it was peaking, so that's great.
Yeah, probably. It's very handy for getting people's attention. When it's break time for the adults and you have to get everyone back inside. No more coffee. Sorry, it's very handy.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Okay, what is the oldest thing in your fridge right now?
Ooh, Probably some maraschino cherries.
Okay, great. If you
Yep,
could
for
have,
Manhattan.
say that again.
For making Manhattans. Yeah.
Oh, for making Manhattan. Yep. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Flight. Yeah. There's so many other good superpowers that might be more useful, like teleportation would get you many places, but man, it would be cool to be able to fly. So I'm picking the cool one.
Yeah, that's a great answer, common answer, but I like it. Would probably be mine too. Stealing one from the Tim Ferriss podcast, if you could have any message on a billboard for thousands of people to see, what would it say?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. If I could have any message on a billboard, I think I would go honestly with something to the effect of what I was talking about earlier, which is it's okay to fail, hooray, I failed, whatever you want to put it at. Because I think it's unfortunate that it's ingrained in a lot of people's minds that, that failure thing is such a bad thing, but it's just a growth thing. And I think it's so important for people to understand. I think people would be much more healthy mentally if they didn't have, an anxiety around failure or anything like that, which is why I preach it so much, because I think there are so many systems, that are designed to create that sort of anxiety, which, they just are necessary sometimes. I'm not saying anything, but I think anything we can do to relieve that is so important, which is why I say it all the time. And I model it for my students and my singers, I'm like, oh, I messed up. Sorry. Yep. I'm human too. No big deal. We're going to move on. It's all good. And when I mess up big time, then I apologize. I did that the other day. When I had selected a piece, I hadn't previewed the text as well as I should have. I thought it was a very simple lullaby, but at the end, it actually dealt with the loss of a child. So they were singing a lullaby to their rainbow child, basically, a child that came after one that they had lost. And I didn't warn my adult choir ahead of time that content was coming, which, obviously is a trigger or, something that is hard to deal with for people because it's so close to their hearts, and so I had a rehearsal again, after previewing, after that happened. And I said, I'm sorry, I goofed and here's why, and we'll make it right. So that would be my.
I love it. Yeah. I love that message. Okay. Well, congratulations. You've achieved Tempo Presto. Thanks for playing that little Accelerando game with me.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. So we're getting close to the end here. So what are some goals, or maybe what you're really excited for this season? What are you most looking forward to?
I think there are two things, and I've been talking to a lot of different people about this. I'm definitely really looking forward to a couple things. One is with the Boulder Children's Chorale. We have an alumni, Leah, who she graduated from Curtis with her master's in composing, and we commissioned her to write a piece for us. We are doing collaborative work with the youth orchestra, the Greater Boulder Youth Orchestra. And so it's going to be for K-9 choirs and then their middle school ensemble. And we're going to do a 20-minute long work in April, combined together, that all of the text was taken from our students. So Leah actually sent out questionnaires for the students to fill out. Some students wrote poetry. And then she came in and worked with the students when she came in for 1 week at both organizations, and talked to them and got more feedback and kind of dive deeper into some of the responses. And then from that, she created all of the texts. And then, along with that, because this is all about empowering youth voices, we're partnering with 5 other nonprofits like Rise Against Suicide or Out Boulder County, nonprofits in our area that work with youth, and to empower their missions with youth. And they're going to be presenting at the performances as well. So I'm really, really excited for that. It's our 15th anniversary season for both us and Greater Boulder Youth Orchestra. So we were able to kind of put that together as a joint project, which is really, really exciting. The other thing that I'm really excited for, I'm excited for a lot that we're doing, but the thing that's coming up right now is Kyle Peterson wrote a piece of Vision Unfolding. It just came out this year. And it's just this wonderful message about putting love into the world and leading with love and not letting all of the other things that are different about us, not letting it divide us. And I love his writing, but I love the message especially. And he worked together with a spoken word artist named Chanel Gabriel, and she wrote spoken word interludes for the piece. And we're flying her out from New York to come perform with us because we're going to premiere it in Colorado. And so I'm really, really excited to bring that to our community because, especially in the season that we find ourselves in, where there's, maybe more divisions than there might be otherwise, I think spreading a message of love and kindness and togetherness is really, really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's really cool. You've got a lot of really exciting things coming up. Okay, well, folks, we're fresh out of time. Where can people go now to learn more about you and your work, Nathan?
I guess I technically have a website. It's very outdated, but it's nathanwubbena.weebly.com, the free version, because free's good. And you can contact me at nathan@boulderchorale.org, first name at boulderchorale.org. And I'm happy to be a resource for you in any way you need me. I'm here. I love to help.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that I'd like to give you this opportunity to jump in here and say if I've missed anything?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much anything. I just say to everyone, have a good year. Lean on the people that you love and that support you, and don't listen to the people that don't.
Awesome. Well, Nathan, thanks again for joining me here on the Connections podcast. And we will talk again soon.
Yeah, sounds great.